Hello everyone, this is a horrible day to be doing this and I'm feeling a bit crappy as well, but today I'm actually going to do some dialing tuning on my new Bird Aeris 9. So those that follow my Instagram will know I've recently acquired a new enduro bike. I've had this a few weeks now, but I actually haven't been able to get around to riding it, unfortunately with illness and then having to catch up with things because I was ill. I just haven't had the time. But before I get it all dirty and scratched and damaged and everything else, let's do a quick bike check. So as usual, going from front to back, we'll start with the cockpit. So I've got some NV M7 bars. These are at 800mm. And on this I've got my XT brakes. So these are XT M8100 4-pot brakes, and I've got a 12-speed setup with an XT shifter. This has got a Fox transfer dropper post. I've got the Fox transfer lever as well, and the typical old favourite of the ODI grips. Now, Fox 38 factories, 170mm. With a grip 2 damper, obviously. Wheel wise, we've got the Hope Fortis 30s. This is a 29er bike, running on Maxxis DHR2 tyres, which is pretty typical for me. These are 2.4, and I'm running max grip compound on these, largely because they were cheap. Coming up a bit, I've actually got a 35mm stem at the moment, but I might change that out, but it's a Unite Renegade stem, and if I change it out, it'll be the 42mm stem that Unite do as well. The typical nuke-proof Wahoo cap as well, so I can mount my Wahoo. So coming into the middle, we've got, it's actually a Bird Aeris 9. This is a size large. Now at my height, I'm between the ML, which is their medium lung, and the L. So I went with the L. I started to really second guess myself, wondering, oh no, I've done the wrong thing, all the rest of it. So I went in down to Bird's showroom in Eveley in the southeast, and I rode both, and actually there was very little between them for me. So I went with a large, larger because I've got a short bike for bike park stuff, and I wanted this more as an actual enduro bike. The colour's blurple, so at certain angles it's blue and at other angles it's purple. So if I come round, it might colour shift. Yeah. And I've paired this up with a EXT Storia shock. So this is a 230x65. I'm running the 160mm linkage. There is an optional 180mm linkage, so you could have 180mm on this bike with the same size shock. And I'm running the chip, flip chip, whatever they call them, in the short chainstay configuration rather than the lung configuration. The lung configuration does slack out the bike slightly, but obviously extends the wheelbase as well. So coming up a bit, we've got the Fox transfer dropper. It's a Kashima item, 150mm, practically my de facto go-to these days, and a WTB speed saddle. So that's reclaimed off another bike, mainly because you can't get them anymore. But yeah, I like the saddle. It's a long-term item of mine. Coming down a bit, so I've got a mostly XT setup on this. So XT cranks, these are 170mm 32 tooth chain ring. They're attached to the frame using an Uber bike components ceramic bottom bracket, and there's a Unite chain guard there as well, and chain ring bash guard and chain retention. A new one for me though is the Pembrey pedals. So yeah, they're a nice size. So I normally run Volts because they're quite large, and these are slightly bigger. So yeah, it's the first time I'm running these, and if it goes quite well, I might swap out all my bikes to them. Like the rest of the world as well, I've gone for a Fidlock bottle cage, largely because I tried putting a normal one on here and I couldn't get the bottle in alright. So we've got a Fidlock one. Not that I've brought a bottle with me today, but anyway. Moving on, so XT rear mech. This is actually an SLX cassette, and it's actually a reused, so I've actually reclaimed this off another bike, but yeah, 12 speed, obviously the chain that goes with that. What I haven't covered is the brake discs, so pretty much my typical now, the Shimano, what are they now? XTR MT905s or something, but it's a 203 rotor front and back. These the performance of these are absolutely stonking, price wise and reliability wise. Price wise they're really fucking expensive, and reliability wise I do have to chew them more often than I would like, but I mean, other than that they're great. All needs bedding in though. And again the same wheel and tyre combo at the back. So that is pretty much the bike. Actually I lie, some accessory items. So I've got the Pembury seat post clamp as well. I really like the design of these. So they're actually built to allow for equal load around the whole collar. So it's a very, very nice looking design. And obviously the mud guard is a mud hugger that bolts directly to the fork. So today's actually going to be first ride day, and as part of that, I'm going to try and get this bike dialed in. So the things I'm going to try and dial in, first of all, brakes. So I'm going to try and bed them in quickly in the car park, and then adjust the throw of the levers and the bite points on these. Then it's probably going to be more sort of the cockpit, so are the bars sort of rotated where I want them, are the controls where I want them, and unusual for me is the stem length I've chosen, which I say is 35mm on this. Is that right, or do I want to go slightly further out? And that's largely going to be based on weight over the front wheel and whether I'm washing the front wheel out, basically. Though I could adjust that also with stacks, so it really depends on what I'm feeling. And then obviously it's the suspension. So in terms of the rear shock, this has all been largely settled by JTech already. Now JTech have taken my weight and the bike and everything else, and they've given me some recommended settings which, based on my experience, are usually very, 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 very close. The only thing I normally have to maybe adjust, and this is more depending on where I am than anything else, is the rebound. But there's only one rebound on this, so it's relatively simple. Other than that, I generally don't have a problem with the recommendation. But we're also doing the fork today as well. So in terms of what we're going to do, going to do a sag test first. And I did this the other day, but I wasn't wearing all my garb. So I'm going to try and get the sag at around 20 to 22% ish. People have different recommendations and ideas around what sag should be. 20 to 22% serves me quite well. And then I'm going to do a volume test, and that's basically to determine whether I would benefit from either putting in or taking out a token. Sorry, there's a car going past then. But yeah, whether I benefit from putting in or removing a volume spacer. There's every setup guide you see, they always talk about sag and compression and rebound. Very few talk about actually how to set up the volume, or at least initially set up the volume, and roughly how many tokens you might want. It's quite difficult to show. If I can, I will. But basically what you end up doing is pulling the biggest bunny hop you possibly can and slamming the fork down. So do this with the compression and rebound circuits completely open, and after you've set the sag, pull into what is basically an American bunny hop, and then slam down hard. If you come to around 70 to 80% usage, you're in a good place. 80% probably more if you're looking at setting this up for trail, 70% if you're setting this more for downhill. And then once you've done that, if you're not hitting your point, as in you're, let's say 60% for example, so you find it very difficult to go up the travel, then you probably want to take a volume spacer out. If you're overshooting the 80% mark, for example, then you probably want to add a spacer in, and that's just basically if it, just very, very quickly, because otherwise this video is going to be very, very long. If you've got your sag set properly and you're finding it's very difficult to bottom out the fork based on your normal riding, then your fork's probably too progressive. So you want a more linear curve in terms of how your fork responds. Therefore, you have less volume spacers. If you are bottoming out too easy, then you would want a more progressive response on your fork. Therefore, you want to add a spacer, basically. But that's all very, very, very boring. And then I'll sort out the compression and rebound on this fork. It's a grip 2 damper, so you've got both high and low speed compression, high and low speed rebound. Now, I could go into the whole boringness of how all that works. If there is any interest, I can do a separate video on that. I won't do it now. But basically, it can take days to get to a sort of base setting based on bracketing. So what I'm going to do, slightly accelerate the process. I go somewhere in the middle. What sort of feels okay in the car park in terms of the low speed. I'm going to match that with the high speed, and then I'm going to use a shock whiz to this is a little shock whiz here to effectively get me in my ballpark. Now, generally I get very, very good results, and I only need to do maybe slight tweak to the. So if I put it on the playful setting. On the shock whiz, saying I want a playful ride, I might have to open up the high speed compression slightly from there, 1 or 2 clicks, but I say largely gets me in the ballpark quite nicely. So I'm going to go put my garb on and as I say, just start the tuning process. So volume test is coming at about 73%, which is perfect for what I want for this bike, so we don't need to make any changes to the volume spacers. But if you did want to, I've got a video on that, and here's the card at the top right hand corner. Hello everyone again. So I'm going to stop, I can't bloody cycle and talk at the same time. Alright, the push-up nearly killed me. So this is the first run, I'm at Forest of Dean. This is, I'm going to do a countdown to launch pad. Now on this first run, it's a blue trail, it's quite easy. I'm just really trying to figure out if I've got too much rebound on the back, have on my bars and controls in sort of the right position I want, bed the brakes in, and largely from the front, all I'm really worried about is whether I'm washing. So, you know, have I got sufficient grip at the front? Not really worried too much about anything else about the front fork. It's largely going to be on the low band compression circuit, this one, so you know, pump efficiency, that sort of thing is probably going to be thrashed out on this one anyway. Now, what I would recommend is, if you are dialing your bike in, if you just wear an action cam, what you can do is you can actually call out to yourself later on what you were feeling. I think I might have just slightly a bit too much rebound on the back. That might be because I forgot to turn the lockout off. We'll try that now. That feels much better. Now it feels quite lazy at the front. I might dial up the compression very slightly, maybe 1 click on the low speed. Brakes aren't quite there yet. The brakes aren't quite where I want them in terms of bite or power or anything yet, but best to wait for the bedding before you worry about it too much. Right, so changing tact. I've decided to go beg to be left on the uplift, so they sold me a ticket, thankfully. Also put one of those Nurofen pain relief patches on my back. When I went back to the car, I noticed the shock whiz wasn't working properly, so I've had to reboot that. Weather's gone worse. Now it's pissing down, so let's see what we do next. And down to launch pad again, I think. Quite like the 35mm stem for its very direct steering. Increase the preload slightly on the rear shock as well. I think the coil's rattling loose a bit, so hopefully it should be a bit quiet on the way down now. Yeah, but I feel sluggish at the moment, so hopefully we'll get some more pop into it. Might be the tyres, these are max grip. So it's all weather surface, tends to be less slippery when it's wet, luckily. It's really slow. So I'm trying to get some movement back in my neck. So I might have started going faster in a minute. There's a bit of water on the brakes, I'll hot the bed in a bit, so all good. Not that I've had to really brake down there. Felt alright, largely. High speed compression good coming down there. The toss, I think. Right, I'm going to do a bit more varied this time, so we'll start off on ski run. 4 jumps, then into flatlands, then to tube school. Okay, that worked. Sort of worked. No, it didn't really work. Took a tree down on the back. That nearly ended badly. Yeah, talked to far through here. He lost it then. The frame has been rattled. So the front is too hard. My arse connected with the tyre that time. Just the route. Fuck you now. I think my tyre pressure might be a little bit too high for this bike actually. So I'm thinking, low speed could do with being a little bit higher, and high speed to compression. Low speed needs to be softer with a bit more pop, and high speed needs to be a bit softer, slightly less pop. Yeah, that was horrible. High speed should have dealt with that. Right, so I just did the 4 jumps on skis run again, knocking it down, 1 rebound on the back. There's yeah, really sorted the potential over the bar thing going on. Got more controlled. Could probably do with another notch of high speed compression taking off. Between now and the last run, I've taken 2 psi each out the tyres. Yeah, I'm thinking high speed compression, another notch.
Oh, sorry, we ruined the video.
Sorry about that. Oh, don't worry about it. It was ruined before I started. I'm only doing the video for setup today, so
Oh, right.
yeah, just so I remember what I'm doing.
Yeah, yeah.
Alzheimer's and everything, you know.
Fair enough.
No, you wouldn't. High speed off a bit more, I think. Yeah, but grip wise, that was better. Ski run start. I've lost a bit of pop. I've managed to reduce the high speed compression on the rear shock. Open a bit, 1 click, and the front I've taken a further 2 clicks open on the high speed compression. I don't think there's any other changes. Route wise, seems to be alright. Quick conclusion, and again, sorry about the GoPro crapping out. Do a quick setup in the car park, saddle, bar position, bar controls, the base brake setup, base suspension setup, then fine tune by riding. Use an action cam to record your notes. Then make changes as you progress. Take notes on the changes so you can revert if needed. From Carpark base, I changed the rear shock by slightly opening of the rebound and low speed compression, and the front fork by slightly closing of the low speed rebound and high speed compression, and the slight closing of the high speed rebound and low speed compression. Thank you for watching the video. Sorry it's a bit of a hodgepodge. Hopefully we'll get something better soon. Thank you.